Lindsay Del Carlo, the Trial Garden Manager for Renee's Garden Seeds, and I want to show you today my mint pot. So this has nice healthy new growth, and I'm going to make my first clippings of mint to use for tea today. And I had refurbished this pot after it was very root bound after a season of growing, and it's starting to come back now. It's grown back enough to start making my first clippings of mint to use for my tea and salads, and I'll show you how I did that. So this is Renee's Heirloom Spearmint, and I grew this from seed a couple years ago. And spearmint is a perennial which spreads by underground runners, and so I don't plant it in the ground because I don't want it to take over my whole garden. So I put it in a nice pot. But this has to be renewed every year because it gets pretty root bound, so I'm going to show you what I do. This mint has survived the winter, so you can see the top is pretty shaggy, and I can see a lot of new growth coming up. So I'm going to cut back all the dead branches, and this will make it easier for me to get to the nice new growth that I'm going to divide. So I cut back all the dead branches, and I'm going to take my Hori Hori, one of my favorite tools. It's a Japanese digging knife, and it's got this nice serrated edge, and I can just cut through the middle of the plant and try to get this whole thing out of its pot. As you can see, when it comes up, it's sending out lots of underground runners. I just try to go around and loosen up the whole thing so that I can wiggle it right out of the pot. Okay, so this has been in the pot for a full year. And you can see all these runners, and this is a reason why you want to keep it in a pot. It keeps them contained so it doesn't take over your whole garden. So to renew my pot, I'm just going to divide off a chunk of this and replant it. So this is a nice chunk of mint. It's got a bunch of nice healthy runners that are going to form your new plant. And it's good to set all this up on a tarp because it makes a huge mess. And then the rest of this, you can either divide them up and give them away to your friends, or if it turns out it ends up being a lot of mint, so I will, all the extra, I will sometimes just let it dry out completely and then put it in the compost. You want it to fully dry out and die off, otherwise it will just regrow in your compost. So when you're cutting up and dividing your mint, don't worry about hurting it. Mint is incredibly resilient. So I'm ready to replant my mint. I have a bag of fresh, brand new potting soil. Fill it up about 3/4 of the way with potting soil. So I like to use a pot that's low and really wide. Since mint spreads by underground stems, it allows it to spread out and create a more full plant as opposed to a pot that's real tall and narrow. Okay, so I'm going to put my divided chunk of mint right in the middle of the pot, untangle the roots a little bit if they're real packed together. Just put it right in the middle with the green on top. And refill around. Potting soil around to tamp it down. I don't ever push down because then you'll push out all the air space that you need for oxygen. push down some of the stems. Refill the rest of the way. So I'm done potting up my divided mint, and before I water it in, I'm going to move it back to its permanent spot, otherwise it'll be way too heavy. So you want to put your mint pot in a full sun spot and give it plenty of water. If it's in too much shade, it tends to get really buggy. It makes it more prone to mites and aphids, and you'll have a nicer plant and better tasting mint if you give it a full sun area. I'm gonna water it in very thoroughly. I have my pot set up on bricks so that it's not contacting the soil because it tends to plug up the drainage holes of the pot. A couple weeks to see it sprouting back, but this mint is going to grow back all fresh and new again. If you don't divide your mint, after a year of it being in a pot and root bound, it loses its vigor and the leaves won't grow back as fresh and nice as they were before. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. And you can find our spearmint seeds on renatusgarden.com. Thanks.